Hey everybody, welcome back to Stellar Performance Solution. Chris McCabe coming to you from Barcelona, Spain. And I'm recording again with Leah for the first time in a few weeks. Feels like a couple of months. And I'm going to update you on Cellar Velocity in France since you were not able to join us, unfortunately.
Yeah, my first one not there.
I know. First off, apologies. I've been talking pretty much ever since I touched down in Europe. So my voice is a little scratchy today. I tried to rest it over the weekend, and I did rest it over the weekend. I don't remember having long drawn out conversations, but still recovering from all the conversations I had. So I guess my first update for you would be that the networking was top notch. We had awesome questions from attendees who ranged from UK business owners and brands to Spanish, French. I don't remember anyone from Italy, Germany. And one of our speakers, Robert of Texely, was from Hungary, Budapest, which I did not know, actually. Cool. He speaks French. Yeah, it was a Francophone event, which was largely in English. So it was Anglophone, yeah. Francophone. I mean, long story short, for those of you who didn't see our LinkedIn post and other videos about it, I was trying to mix it up a little bit. I think we have done the tried and true American version for American-based or US-based sellers of, Amazon brands for a long time. This is our 7th one. So we did 6 previous in the United States. This one was in South Central France, Lyon, which is maybe the 3rd largest city in France. I learned French in Paris a long time ago, so I can still kind of get by. And speak it a little bit. I think at this point I'm better in written French because I did a lot of emails in French when I worked at Amazon. Spoken French. It's a little easier in southern France because people don't speak as quickly as Parisians, but of course I was still missing a word here and there.
I learned French in high school, so I cannot speak French.
Yes, you would have been one of our English speakers, and we had English speaking presentations. Vincenzo was there speaking in English. James Wakefield of Wake Commerce was there, and Meki Muadeb of Market Leap. He was going to talk about AI. He ended up talking about some VAT issues and logistics. I think he might be lesser known to the American audience, but I just spoke with him this morning, actually. He was asking, with all of the tariff stuff going on, which even though we were doing this event in Europe, there was tons of talk about tariffs, tons of talk about Americans trying to sell in Europe and UK a lot more now. Mm-hmm. And he's one of the people who is, I guess the model that people would know is the company Pattern, kind of like you give us all your stuff and we'll take care of the Amazon side and the multi-channel fulfillment. And that's the conversation I had with him this morning. I think he might be a good person for US-based businesses to engage with.
Yeah, especially if you want to sell in Europe and you don't want to have to deal with that and all the European requirements yourselves.
Yep. And Robert Mate spoke about that and similar issues. This was not an occasion where we wanted to live stream or mess with any of that stuff. And there were sellers from the US who attended, by the way. I had a few people over here, continental Europe or in the UK, who said, oh, you're not going to get any US sellers for this. There'll be Eastern European, Western European, British Isles, maybe down in the Mediterranean. We did have some US sellers, which was good. So, roll of the dice, a little bit of experimenting, but importantly, solid conversations about kind of the where do we go from here. Everyone seemed to understand that it's a make or break period as an Amazon brand, whether it was ads or PPC or what we do with appeals and listing takedowns or understanding AI. I think everyone in the room understood that the decisions you make now are going to impact you for the rest of this year into next. And how much money you make or lose, sales that you win or lose over the next 6 to 9 months. And that could be a big deal for people that are maybe not making as much as they were this time last year, or just dealing with all the costs.
Well, yeah, margins are a lot tighter than they were a few years ago.
Fake fees. I just saw a post this morning. I didn't have a chance to look at it, about a new, they called it a remeasurement cost, like a non-fee type thing. But that's never going to stop, right?
It's going to be more and more fees.
Yeah, well, since you were not there, I managed to talk about some of the listing takedowns from AI that you've worked on that were compliance flags. We talked about that a little bit. But just generally, we don't know where Amazon's going to go with AI, with trying to swap out humans for bots. When will the tipping point come where Amazon realizes, you know what, we've got all this headcount and we're not watching what these investigators are doing. We're not looking at investigative quality anyway. Let's swap them out for some machine learning and some artificial intelligence because we're losing this war. We're not going to train these people anyway. Part of my talk was about all the recent review manipulation suspensions and how just crazy inconsistent those enforcement teams are. Some people left a couple of reviews that are questionable, maybe for a competitor, and they're getting told they're kicked off for life. And then, as you know, I've talked to some people lately who were both padding their 5-star reviews and sabotaging their competitors.
Yes.
By buying from them and leaving them 1-star reviews. And by the way, not being very careful about it. And they were given a free pass. They slapped something together. Shame on me for saying that some of these useless copy and paste templates are actually productive, because a few of them had what looked to me like slapped together. I mean, they did fill in some details that were real, but they coasted through because I guess they profited from the lax enforcement. Amazon's kind of advertising that, hey, we're cracking down, but it's like, well, you're cracking down on some people.
That's always the case, though. There's always like some people they make it so much more difficult for than others.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's because of how much money they bring to the marketplace. Sometimes it's because they know somebody useful. It just never really, no, that really annoys me. It has annoyed me since we've been doing this.
But it's worse when there's so many dispute-only appeals paths. That's what created the current crisis. I have a good analogy after my many walks in the French countryside, which occasionally took me through farmland, and I posted a bunch of pictures. I don't know, maybe I've got a few left that I can put up this week, but it's like building a fence and you like solidly reinforce half of it, a third of it, you put tons of resources, materials, barbed wire, steel, whatever it is for some of it. And then as you walk along the fence, you find a gaping hole where it's basically papier-mâché in this case.
And then they're like, how come it's not working?
Yeah. And it's like, well, some of the people ran into the brick wall or the steel wall or the barbed wire. Yeah, you got some sellers that way. Was it the sellers that were the worst offenders who went that way? Maybe, maybe not. Some of the worst offenders went through the gaping hole you had in your fence.
Yeah. One thing that annoys me with the dispute-only appeal is that for the same violation, I'll see some sellers get a dispute only and some sellers get the option to provide a POA. And it's like, they did the exact same thing. Why do they have to prove that they didn't do it? But these people just have to say that they won't do it again.
That's the worst part. That's the worst part.
Yeah.
No, you know what? The worst part is account health reps don't seem to know themselves.
No, of course not. So they tell people to write a POA when when Amazon hasn't even asked for a POA. So
I think I'm going to do a LinkedIn post / podcast episode, maybe an article about some of the calls I've been on lately. It was people in account health I had talked to before. No doubt in my mind. I remember the name. I remember the voice. And the person was saying the same exact thing. They didn't know that they had said the same exact stuff in the same order to the same seller. So they don't even care if they're caught at this point. I mean, they're like, and we called them out on it, by the way. We didn't just sit there passively listening. We said, do you realize, I think it was 9 days ago, 10 days ago, we had this identical conversation with you. What is the point of this call? You called us to have an identical conversation with us. Clearly, you're just checking a box to say that you did something.
Well, yeah, their system is like, you need to call this person and tell them something. Because half the time, when it's them calling you, they don't even know the situations.
Right.
It's just their tool told them to call you.
But I think in the beginning, some of them would take note. The content would be a little different from call to call. They would at least fake it. They're not even faking it anymore. It was the same exact conversation. So we said, why don't we pause? Why don't you look back at your notes from 10 days ago? Because you told us the exact same thing. What's the point of this call if it's just to give us false hope and get rid of us and to fake that you're working? Well, then you shouldn't be faking that you're working. It means that your job at Amazon has no value.
Right.
And I didn't say it in those words, but we basically said, we're going to give you a chance to give us another person to talk to. And I think every seller, if you're calling and talking to enough US reps, I never talk to anyone who's not in the US. That's a total waste of time. Everyone at Amazon knows that's a waste of time, but they keep
specifically with account health, because that's not the case with other
I'm talking
things.
about account health and obviously by extension support, but we're not talking about support. And so my post is basically going to be, we gave this person a chance to mend their ways, to produce some value, and they obviously didn't care. No one's watching them. There's no QA whatsoever. Amazon probably tells sellers we're listening in on some of these calls. They were doing that in the beginning. They're not doing it anymore.
Right.
Anyone with a child's level education could tell that these guys are mailing it in. And if they're mailing it in, then yes, they can be replaced by AI because they're not producing any value. So we talked about stuff like that at Seller Velocity. I mean, that wasn't the crux of my talk, but strategy works. That doesn't lose you thousands of dollars when you're goofing off with appeals. This is part of it. Intel gathering, info gathering. And look, I don't care where you get reliable info. If you have an SAS core manager and they're giving you good info, then fantastic. If you find it by talking to other teams and other people you met at Amazon Accelerate, great. That works too. But build a strategy off of real info, not just like, I was told this, I heard that. Someone told me this. I belong to a mastermind. A few of them told me that. That's mush. And that's just not going to fly anymore, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of always been the case that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing inside of Amazon, but now it's sort of like the thumb doesn't know what the pinky is doing at this point.
Yes. Good one. Good one. Today's analogy day.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think I left out any speakers, but we can always do another episode where I kind of talk about them individually. But we had a great crew this year. Definitely smaller than last year's New York event. So I think in the future, we're going for kind of, I don't know who joined us in New York last year, a lot of people, but we're probably aiming for about half those numbers going forward. The networking conversations. I mean, we were able to do some kind of smaller dinners of groups of people from the event. It's a little tougher to do when there's 75 of you.
I also think when you're international, there's more group activities after the conference. When we're in the US, it's usually everybody's just like in for the conference and out. So
yeah, well, maybe this can be how we close, because this is the only Seller Velocity I remember going out afterwards, and not just for a drink. We went to a waterfront club, which was interesting. I believe there are some embarrassing videos of me moving around on a dance floor. I haven't seen them yet, but I saw people with phones. So, if it's really embarrassing, I'm going to immediately start saying those are deep fake videos from the outset. Did we ever go anywhere, or were we just wiped out?
I mean, we went out in Bend. We went to a
Oh, right. I did not. You were there.
Yeah, I went out.
Okay. You went out in Bend. I was the designated driver. So, yeah, so that's right. I'm sorry. We did have that. I just wasn't part of it. So, yeah.
You chose not, but you were not invited. You just didn't come out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was the responsible one that night.
Yeah.
For once. But, yeah, so we'll see, we're already getting people asking us what's next. So of course,
and I'm
of course, you and I have talked about Thailand before. I don't know, maybe Paris, maybe Thailand.
Those are very different places.
Well, Paris was
also one is a city and one is a country.
Yeah, no. Well, Thailand could be Bangkok. It could be Chiang Mai. But
you know where my vote is.
Paris was a vote. A lot of people in the room were from Paris, and they were like, you know what? I mean, we deliberately avoided Paris on this, and Paris and Lyon are very different places. But I'm open-minded. We'll see for next time. You never know. Anyway, I'm glad I was able to update you on this. I'm sorry you couldn't come to this one.
Next.
If it's in Thailand, I'm pretty sure for the next.
Yes.
But anyone has any questions, not just about the conference, but any of the things I talked about today that we talked about with attendees, let us know. And we're kind of getting back into our Seller Performance Solutions routine. And I'll be back in Leah's time zone very soon. So I'm sure we'll have another wonderful episode next week for y'all to listen to. And thanks for listening this time. Take care.
Thanks, Chris.